Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to The Walk. Today is Monday, July 8th, and I'm going to kind of give you a backstory of how we ended up on this topic that we are on. I have been praying a lot about what to talk about after this prophecy series that we have just finished. And in my life, and as I'm going and I'm talking to people and interacting with people, over and over and over again, Ezekiel is coming to me. And it felt like it was a daunting task. It felt like it was going to be too long of a series. And the more I prayed about it and the more I talked about my doubts with the Lord, the clearer it was that that is what we are to do. We are going to do a very deep dive into Ezekiel. It is probably going to take us 5, maybe even 6 days just to get through chapter 1. So if we continue at that pace, we would be doing 1 chapter a week, and we're talking 48 weeks. That's almost an entire year. I don't know that the pace will stay that slow. It may even slow down even more. We may be in Ezekiel for more than a year. But that's what I'm being led to do, and I'm going to be relentlessly obedient to the Holy Spirit. So that's what we're doing. So to give you some backstory and kind of set the scene before we get into Ezekiel 1, Nebuchadnezzar had conquered 2 major world powers. That was Assyria and Israel. God strategically placed 3 major people in the right place at the right time. There were waves of people being exiled to Babylonia. In that first wave, Daniel the prophet went. In the second wave, Ezekiel the prophet went. And Jeremiah was able to stay where he was. And then, where was it? And he was able to stay there underneath the care of the governor. But when the governor was killed, he was exiled to Egypt. So it's important that we remember that these 3 prophets were alive and walking around and giving these prophecies around the same time. They were aware of each other. There's a lot of influence from Jeremiah in Ezekiel, and it's very clear as you read into the later chapters of Ezekiel that Ezekiel knew who Daniel was, even if he didn't know him personally. I'm not able to find that information of whether or not they knew each other personally, but they were at the very least aware of each other. According to the Apologetics Study Bible, in that second siege of Jerusalem, that's when Ezekiel was taken to Babylonia. He was from the priestly family of Buzi, B-U-Z-I, and he was a Zadokite priest. So what did that mean for his life? What that meant was that they were to train for their priestly role until they were 30 years old. So in his first 25 years, he was in Jerusalem. He was training for that priestly role, and he was expecting that when he turned 30, he would step right into that role as his other family members had done. So, but unfortunately, he was taken to Babylon. Well, it's not unfortunately. It was part of God's plan. He was taken to Babylon before he turned 30. Interestingly enough, what I found is that these visions started when he was 30 years old. Right when the priestly role would have started, that's when these visions started. So now we're getting into Ezekiel 1, and we're only going to go through the first 3 verses today because we're already almost at 5 minutes. It says in Ezekiel 1:1, in the 30th year, in the 4th month, on the 5th day of the month, as I was among the exiles by the Chebar Canal, the heavens were opened and I saw visions of God. Okay, so as I dug into this, when would this be on our calendar? This would be July 31st of that year. And then in verse 2, it says, on the 5th day of the month, it was the 5th year of the exile of King Joachim, the word of the Lord came to Ezekiel, the priest, son of Buzi, in the land of Chaldeans by the Chebar Canal, and the hand of the Lord was upon him there. Okay, When you break down that timing, it is the exact same day. He basically just gave you the timing in two different ways. And I got very interested in the Chebar Canal. And what that was, is it was a place where many Israelites were settled. They were kind of on the outskirts of Babylonia, but that's where they were settled. And here's what I'm imagining, and here's what I'm picturing. He's in this horrible position. He's been exiled from his homeland. It feels like God has left his holy people and that they are in a horrible position. And I imagine, I don't know that this is the case. This is just what I think. I'm imagining Ezekiel going, you know what? I'm going to go for a walk and I'm going to go sit by the canal and I'm going to see what I can hear from the Lord. And he goes to this canal and he sits down, and that's where this vision starts. And we're going to get into the vision tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. God bless, and keep walking the walk.